I have quite a bit of family that are in the food industry. I have an uncle that's a retired chef, grandfather on one side that worked as a chef, grandmother on the other side that works as a chef, and 3 cousins that work as chefs. But I had no desire to be in the industry at all, really. I had never even thought about it.
Hi, we're at the Wandering Cooks with Ben Devlin, and he's going to share with us the dish that he did at Drinks with Chefs.
A few changes to it today. The dish has evolved. The yabbies that I used on the day are not available at the moment, and neither is the mustard leaf. So I have banana prawns from Mooloolaba and chicory. So it'll be a little bit of a change to the dish. It won't be quite so spicy, it'll be a little bit more bitter, but I think it'll be quite nice. So we're going to make a little bit of macadamia milk to start. We're going to make a bit of chicory leaf dressing, and then we're going to brine the prawns, clean them up a little bit, squeeze some milk, make the dressing, and go. So we'll start with some macadamia milk. Basically, we're going to be blending up macadamias with water to get the oil from the macadamias to emulsify with the water, and that's going to create a milky sort of consistency. Usually go with about equal parts macadamia and water just to get the right consistency for me. And I usually take just a couple, probably about 10% of the macadamias, and I roast them just to get a bit more flavour out of it, because otherwise it's a bit dull.
So what brought you to Brisbane, or what kept you here?
I came back to Brisbane after living overseas, and so I lived here for probably 5 or 6 years or something like that. I came back to Brisbane after being overseas just because, it felt like home, and it's where I wanted to be. And I mean, it keeps me here now because, I've lived a lot of my life here. It's become my home pretty much. It's still close to Byron where I grew up, and I'm kind of settled in. I like the town. I like the atmosphere that it has. Like it's got enough. Like it's big, but it's not too big. When you go to other cities, sometimes they can be, they can feel a little cold or a little distant. It still feels like there's a lot happening here, and as a food sort of scene, it feels like, it's kind of where I want to be. It's creating the right kind of food, and people seem to enjoy it, so, it feels like home. It feels right, basically. All right, so macadamia is marinating. We're gonna make the chicory leaf dressing. Really easy. You want a lot of flavor out of it. Obviously, that's why you're making it. It's about equal parts leaf to oil, but there's no egg or anything like that to bind it. So the really important thing with a dressing like this is it ends up being really cold. So I've got the blender jug is chilled, it's cold. Oil is frozen because otherwise the emulsion's not very stable. So leaves, just break them up a little bit. Don't need to be too precious with it. And for this one, I've got about 200 grams of leaves and about 200 grams of oil. We're going to go with just a little bit of mustard just to balance it out. It'll get a little bit of heat in there, and it will also make the emulsion just a little bit more stable. So it's about 10 grams or so. Get some salt in. I'm going to go with about 20 grams of vinegar, and this is just a nice malt vinegar. And just to make the flavour a little bit more rounded, we're going to get a bit of fish sauce. I tend to use it quite a bit because it does make things a bit more savoury. Like it rounds them out quite a bit in ways that just salt or just vinegar wouldn't really do.
So why do you use salt and fish sauce?
Because for me, they hit different parts of your mouth. Typically with something like this, salt is going to hit sort of more at the front of your tongue or at the front of your mouth, whereas the fish sauce is going to hit more of the back of your mouth. So if you have them in the right balance, when you get it, you get sort of a more developed flavour all through your mouth, as opposed to just sort of depth at the back or just, instant salt at the front. It should hopefully balance the two.
So how do you decide what to cook?
You either start with a problem or you start with a piece of produce. You have a problem, like you say, I need a new dessert, or I need a dish that fits into this point on my menu. Or you have a piece of produce and you have, I have really nice sweet potatoes. And then you look at it and you think, where are they from? How do they taste? What else does that remind you of? How else have you used them before? Or in the same sense, when you have a problem, you think, what's the result that I want to achieve? Like, how do I want people to feel when they are finished eating this dish? I want them to be filled and satisfied, cleaned and refreshed, or I want them to be, anticipating the next dish or whatever it is. So you try and look at the problem and go, this is where I want to be, and then think about the most logical way to get there, which is a bit clinical at times, but I guess what's logical to me and those steps is sometimes different for other people. So I find it a really good way to work. It's like find a problem, solve the problem, and then use all of the information that you have to do that. So, I don't know. All right, so prawns, banana prawns, these ones are from Mooloolaba. They're gonna go into iced salt water. It's about 5% salt, so which is a little bit saltier than seawater is. I'm gonna leave them in here after I've cleaned them for probably about 10 minutes. The idea being that the salt water is going to lightly season the meat. It's going to hopefully break down the sinew in between the muscles a little bit, but also it softens the sinew, but makes the muscle itself contract a little bit, so it gets a little bit firmer. So it's a slightly nicer way to serve raw seafood, particularly shellfish, because otherwise it can be a little mushy and soft. So this way kind of picks up the flavor of it and makes the texture a little bit nicer. So we'll just clean all these back. With these ones, we're going to take some of these legs as well, and we're going to just sort of fry them off lightly and dry them out, and they become part of the dish as well. Just a nice bit of texture and a little bit of flavor, and just these nice little legs here. The rest of it we can use to make a stock or something later. With the macadamia milk, it's been aging a little bit. Ideally, you want the oils in the macadamia to emulsify with the water and give it a nice thick creamy consistency, but also you want to just get as much flavor out of it as you can. I've got just a chucks cloth here because it works out quite well. A waiter's cloth will do the same job. Alrighty, that should just about do us now. Starting to dry up. So yeah, you can see it looks like milk. It's even wider than regular milk. It's kind of got almost like a goat's milk sort of look to it. And it can be a little thicker than that sometimes, but that's going to come out really well.
So what's your advice or tips, I guess, for other chefs?
Obviously you want to support people. You want to create an environment for them to flourish, to be creative and to be different. But I think it's really important for people to be self-critical as well. You know, you can't wait for someone else to tell you when you're doing something wrong. You know, don't just go, yeah, cool, that's good, like it's okay. You know, you need to go further. You need to instill in people a little bit. They need to have the ability in themselves to solve problems and look at food and critically and go, that was good, but I'm going to do it better next time because I know it needs this, or for whatever it is. And I think that's something that kind of gets missed quite a bit with young chefs. All right, so prawns have been in the salt water for probably about 10 minutes now, and they got a nice texture to them. They feel nice and firm. So we're going to get them out. And what we're going to do is first just clean out the sort of intestinal tract a little bit and get rid of that. Holding the tail end, or holding the head end, scraping towards the tail, we're going to hopefully just break up the muscles. And the idea is not to so much cut into the meat, but just pull along it, and the muscle fibers should be going this way anyway, so they should just hopefully tear across nicely.
Where was that you did that?
That was when I was working at Noma. It was quite a famous dish they had on the menu there of beef tartare, and it was beef tartare with juniper, rye bread crumbs, tarragon emulsion, and wild sorrel. And the idea being that they laid out the beef and then just covered it in sorrel and put the tarragon as a cream off to the side. And you were grabbing the sorrel leaves, you couldn't actually see the beef, using them to hold the beef and then picking up the cream, so you ate everything with your hands.
How can you inspire others to cook great food and enjoy what they're doing?
But I think that if everyone's more open and I guess sharing with their knowledge and their time, then you know, everyone grows, and you don't just lose your information, you hopefully gain theirs as well. So I think, yeah, inspiring others is, you need to work on it basically. Like, you need to really love what you're doing first and care about what you're doing first, and then, you know, help to, hopefully that kind of drags them along with you. They get kind of swept up in your enthusiasm. We've got the prawns already. We've got our chicory dressing. macadamia milk. So we just have these guys here ready. If you want to grab those plates when you have a second. We've got a few nice herbs that we picked up at the finger lime farm as well, so that'll be good. But we're just going to prepare our finger limes to serve up. So we're just going to get a little bit of extra salt on that prawn, and then we're going to bind it with the macadamia milk. And you sort of find that using raw seafood, particularly shellfish, but we found it with oysters and scallops and things like that as well, adding something like cream or like a nut milk just gives it a bit more of a smooth texture. It makes it feel a bit more rich and luxurious when you eat it, and the flavors tend to kind of coat your mouth a bit more as opposed to just kind of biting on them and going away. So binding them with a nice creamy sort of medium is a really good way to extend the flavor and make it stand out a bit more. And with macadamia milk, it just gives it another dimension to the dish. Give it a crack. So for me, it's quite different to the dish from the night. Specifically in the swapping the chicory for mustard, or mustard for chicory rather. The mustard leaf obviously has a bit more heat to it and a bit less bitterness, whereas the chicory is, not hot at all and quite bitter. I like the way it comes out. I'd probably say the finger lime probably works better with the mustard than the chicory, but it's still nice. It moves in your mouth nicely. It doesn't feel like a big jarring piece, but it has a nice bite to it, I think.